Behind the frosted glass at the end of the hallway came Casper Rhodes's unapologetic chuckle, mingled with the grunts of approval from his gang of cronies, sounds that felt like sandpaper scraping across my nerves, sharp and piercing to the point of agony. This ridiculous marriage won't last another year. Lila Thormond isn't even worthy of one of my fingers, Casper said, his voice dripping with the arrogance he'd always displayed, every word laced with icy venom that seemed to strike straight at my heart. Then, one after another, Xavier Perry's hearty laughter, Marcus Tierney's thunderous slap on the table, and Julian Holt's teasing remarks erupted in quick succession. Rhodes, you should have woken up ages ago. Living with a woman who sees nothing but her work is nothing but pure misery. Exactly, look at our own girl, staying home nice and cozy, never having to worry about reading her moods. I clenched the tray in my hands until my knuckles turned white. The steak I'd just finished cooking on the tray was still faintly warm, yet my fingertips felt bone-deeply cold. Originally, I'd come to deliver dinner to them, but now I'm frozen in place, my fingertips digging painfully into the palms of my hands, forcing myself to stay calm. I'm determined to hear just how much filth this man, whom I've supported for 5 years, helping him rise from a homeless wanderer to a member of high society, is still capable of spewing out. Just then, my phone in my pocket vibrated. It was a text message from Xavier. A single line of words sent shivers down my spine. Come to the backyard terrace. Don't make a sound. Just listen to how Casper's going to praise you. I stared at the screen, my heart gripped tightly by an invisible hand. So it turns out that this so-called brother had seen right through everything all along, but only now, at this very moment, had he chosen to warn me. Taking a deep breath, I swallowed the lump in my throat, carefully balanced the tray in my hands, and began walking toward the backyard terrace, each step feeling as though I were treading on the edge of a blade. Casper's voice pierced through the French double doors like a poisoned ice pick, stabbing straight into my ears. Without me, could she have reached this point? It's just sheer luck. She happened to catch the right wave. I froze in place, the steak tray I'd been holding trembling slightly. Hot oil droplets from the freshly cooked steak splashed onto the palm of my hand, scalding me so badly that I jerked my hand back, but not even a single groan escaped my lips. Through the glass, 4 men sat around the teak dining table I'd painstakingly custom-made at great expense, each holding a glass of the 1998 Napa Cabernet Sauvignon from my personal collection. They were chewing away at the meal I'd spent the entire afternoon preparing. This Greystone estate was the very first property I'd bought with the money I'd earned from starting my own business. The furniture had been carefully selected by me over 3 months of hands-on supervision during the renovation. Even the candlesticks in front of them were antique pieces I'd hunted down in Italy during a business trip. Yet right now, they were raising their glasses and cheering for Casper. Marcus even slammed his fist on the table and shouted, "Rose, you really ought to find a woman who knows how to look up to you. That strong woman act of Theron's, that face makes me sick to my stomach." I took a deep breath, forcibly suppressing the raging fury welling up inside my chest. I set the tray steadily onto the stone table in the corner of the terrace. Every single movement felt like a battle against myself, as if I were terrified of letting even the slightest hint of loss of control slip through. They were completely absorbed in their own malice, utterly oblivious to my presence. For a full half-minute, I stood frozen like an icy sculpture behind the colonnade, watching Casper proudly lift his chin, basking in the praise of his friends. I saw the contempt in his eyes, a contempt that sliced and diced, piece by piece, the woman who had paid off his entrepreneurial debts 3 times over and pulled him from the depths of unemployment into the upper echelons of society. The steak on the tray was still sizzling softly, its aroma mingling with their laughter and drifting toward me. A bitter irony indeed. Julian had propped his feet up on the velvet footstool I'd specially air-freighted from Europe, while Marcus bent down once more to pull another vintage bottle from my built-in wine cabinet. In the paradise I'd painstakingly created, they were plotting my personal hell, and every one of their smiles dripped with vile cunning. "Just how long have you been hatching this idea?" Xavier leaned forward, his eyes brimming with malicious glee. His expression was eerily reminiscent of a nosy gossip who can't wait to pry into others' private affairs. Casper swirled his wine glass, the crimson liquid leaving streaks along the rim. His tone dripped with contempt, as if laced with poison. It started the moment she landed that Vitara Global deal. Every single day, she'd wear that sour face, acting as if the company couldn't function without her. That self-important attitude? It's downright disgusting. He'd completely forgotten that when she clinched the Vitara Global deal, he'd been vacationing in the Bahamas. It was I who'd pulled 7 straight all-nighters, revised the proposal 5 times, and spent 4 consecutive social events alongside the client just to secure it. Not only did that deal triple the company's revenue, but it also attracted interest from 3 Fortune 500 companies. The company was built from scratch by Thurmond himself, Julian said, sounding fair on the surface, but his tone was laced with blatant disdain. She's just lucky, that's all. She happened to catch a good market trend. Casper immediately nodded in agreement, as if every single word I'd said had somehow turned into luck in his mouth. He'd forgotten that he'd lost everything 3 times when he started his own businesses. He'd forgotten that I'd used my freelance income to help him pay off his debts. He'd even forgotten that it was I who'd expanded my original studio into today's Reich digital strategy company, while all he did was boast at dinner parties about how he was the visionary behind the scenes. Marcus reached into the liquor cabinet once more and refilled everyone's glasses. "Rose," he said, "you deserve so much better. A real man should find a woman who knows how to be soft. And why on earth would he have to watch what a woman thinks?" Casper loved hearing this the most. Instantly, he launched into a long-winded lecture about his business philosophy, claiming that I only know how to bury myself in work and lack any vision whatsoever. But his so-called vision was nothing but empty bragging around the dinner table, while I spent late nights revising proposals, meeting with clients, and resolving conflicts among my employees. He was either out golfing or hanging out with this bunch of buddies. My hard work has enabled the company to move from a home office to a skyscraper in the city center, allowed him to drive a Bentley, wear bespoke suits, and hang out like a big shot at top-notch golf clubs, but then he turns around and tells his friends that it's all his own doing. Suddenly, my pocket phone vibrates. It's a message from Ezra Fox, our senior developer. Vita Global is thrilled with the new proposal. "We'll sign the expansion contract tomorrow. Another win for you." Tomorrow was supposed to be a milestone day for the company, yet my husband, the very man whose name is printed on the same company documents as mine, is secretly plotting how to ruin me. "The key is, I've been prepared all along," Casper says, his voice dripping with smug satisfaction. "Every time she makes decisions without consulting me, every time she doesn't give me face in front of the staff, I've been keeping track of it all. My lawyer, Evan Norris, the guy I mentioned earlier, the one I play squash with, says I've got solid evidence. At the very least, I can get half of the company." My whole body went rigid. It turned out that the squash partner he'd been talking about was none other than the accomplice who'd helped him divide up my hard work and chin share. That's exactly how it should be. Catch her off guard before she even has a chance to react. Marcus cheered, raising his wine glass. Casper laughed even more triumphantly. "She thinks she's so smart, poring over contracts and financial reports every single day, but she's totally clueless about what's really going on behind the scenes." By what's really going on, he meant that while he was spending my money, sleeping right next to me, and plotting ways to take everything from me, he'd been doing all this, all while I was busy working overtime or traveling for business. Every single night I was away, they'd been hatching plans for Casper, helping him concoct lies about how Layla Thormond is emotionally unstable and selfish. The fury inside me could no longer be contained. With a sudden, forceful motion, I grabbed the tray and flung open the French double doors. The laughter abruptly died down, and the 4 men turned their heads to look at me in unison, their eyes filled with panic. Casper's crystal wine glass froze midair, the liquid sloshing over and splashing onto his expensive suit. "Why wait a whole year?" I slammed the tray onto the side table, my voice as cold as ice, exactly the same tone I'd used when firing underperforming suppliers. "Casper, let's get divorced right now. I don't want to keep you from getting what you truly deserve, nor do I want to spend another day with someone like me who's simply not good enough for you." Xavier's face turned deathly pale in an instant. Marcus hurriedly lowered his head, pretending to check his phone. Julian took a startled step backward, nearly knocking over the candlestick behind him. Casper just stood there, mouth agape, unable to utter a single word for what felt like an eternity. The man who'd always been so confident and self-assured in front of me now looked like a thief caught red-handed. Without giving them another glance, I turned around and walked through the double doors. My footsteps echoed loudly in the empty living room, while behind me I heard their frantic whispers and the harsh scraping of chairs against the floor. I walked straight into the master bedroom, grabbed from the walk-in closet the luxurious suitcase I'd bought myself on the day I landed my first big deal, my movements as precise as those of a surgeon. I carefully folded the suits he'd never once accompanied me to a meeting to attend, packed away the jewelry and designer bags I'd acquired entirely on my own, all of which he'd once shamelessly claimed were our shared property. In the bathroom, I stuffed expensive skincare products, prescription medications, and sleeping pills into my toiletry bag. Ever since his Thursday gatherings had become more and more frequent, I'd been suffering from chronic insomnia. Upstairs, I heard hurried footsteps approaching. Casper, followed closely by Xavier, came running after me. "Layla, please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said, zipping up my suitcase with utter calmness. "You want a divorce, you want a separate company, you even want Evan Norris to handle your lawsuit. I know it all. And I'm perfectly aware of that secret bank account you've been secretly keeping, and how you've been telling investors that my mood swings are making me unstable." Casper's face instantly lost all color. "How could you?" "Xavier sent me a text," I said, glancing over at Xavier standing behind him. "You were the one who reminded me, weren't you?" Casper whirled around, glaring fiercely at Xavier, his eyes blazing with fury as if he were about to devour him. "It was you who turned us in?" Xavier straightened up, his face etched with guilt. "Rose, I can't keep pretending anymore. I've been holding on to screenshots of the group chats we've had for months about the shadow plan you guys were discussing. I've got it all. How you'd twist her words out of context, take photos of her working overtime, and fabricate evidence." "The shadow plan?" I burst into laughter, but there wasn't a trace of amusement in it. "You really treated tearing me down like some kind of military operation?" At that moment, Marcus and Julian also cowered nervously in the doorway, their earlier arrogance completely gone. Xavier went on. "Those so-called gatherings weren't just about playing poker. You made us help you spy on their end. Marcus watched her social outings, Julian tracked her social media activity, and I was in charge of keeping an eye on her relationships with the staff. You even taught us how to manage our wives, telling us to keep track of their mistakes and make them doubt themselves," I said, staring at the three men. All three had once been frequent guests at my home, eating and drinking at my expense. I'd even helped them out of more than one tight spot. Yet now, they joined forces to help Casper destroy me. "You think this is funny?" My voice trembled, yet it was charged with an inner strength. "You think I deserve to be ruined, just because I've achieved more than any of you?" The bedroom fell utterly silent. Casper's hands were clenched so tightly that his knuckles cracked, but he couldn't utter a single word. He knew it was all over. I gently closed the bedroom door behind me. The soft click echoed louder than any slamming door ever could. As I dragged my suitcase down the hallway lined with wedding photos, I heard Casper and Xavier arguing fiercely behind me. I got into my car and drove straight to the Fairmont Olympic Hotel, where I booked an executive suite using a credit card he didn't know about, a card I'd obtained years ago as an emergency fund from my own bonus. Back then, I'd already understood that financial independence was the very foundation of a strong marriage. There wasn't a single memento of him left in the suite. I tossed my phone aside and let his calls and texts flood in. Stepping into the bathroom, I turned on the shower, letting the hot water cascade over me. Finally, tears welled up and spilled down my cheeks. For 5 whole years, I'd loved him and stood by him, yet behind my back, he'd plotted against me with the most despicable tactics. Wiping away my tears, I immediately called my lawyer, Sheila Ventura, the top divorce attorney in the business, and also my close friend. "I knew you'd come to me," Sheila said with unwavering confidence. Xavier has already filled me in on everything. He's willing to testify in court and will hand over all the evidence to me. After hanging up, I ordered room service and indulged in the chocolate souffle he'd always insisted was unnecessary, gradually regaining my composure. Late at night, there was a knock at the door, and it was Xavier, holding 3 bankers' file boxes in his arms. These are Casper's evidence. He's been distorting your emails, forging records of your emotional instability, and even documents proving that he set up a shadow company. I opened the box, and what was inside sent a chill down my spine. My work emails had been maliciously annotated by him. A photo of me drinking 2 glasses of red wine at my sister's birthday party had been labeled evidence of alcoholism, and there were even documents from Reich's strategic investment company, a firm he'd registered, all with names deliberately mimicking mine, clearly aimed at poaching my clients. Just as I finished reading the documents, Ezra sent an urgent message. Casper just emailed all the employees, saying you're having a mental health crisis and that he's taking over the company temporarily. I immediately forwarded the message to Sarah, who responded right away. I'm filing for an emergency restraining order right now. This already constitutes defamation and fraud. Xavier, standing nearby, said guiltily. At first, I thought he was just venting. But then I realized he was serious, and yet I didn't dare speak up. It was my wife, Lena, who threatened me, saying that if I didn't help you, she'd divorce me. I looked at him, without offering forgiveness or casting blame. Just then, an unfamiliar phone call came in. It was Alana, Marcus's wife. Thurmond, I've got a recording of Marcus. Every time he comes home from a party, he brags about how he's outsmarted you, and I've recorded it all. I've already sent the files to Sierra, and I'm filing for divorce too. Immediately afterward, Mia, Julian's girlfriend, also sent me a screenshot showing their detailed plan to poach my clients and employees. It turned out that Casper hadn't just ruined me, he'd even been teaching his friends how to wreck their own marriages. The next morning, early on, Sierra informed me that the emergency restraining order had been granted. Casper was forbidden from accessing the company's accounts and operations. Dressed in my crispest black suit, I headed to the investors' meeting, a pivotal gathering that would determine the company's future. In the conference room, Chief Financial Officer Lena Kim, Curtis Wright, the representative from our largest client Lockheed Martin, as well as investors Noah Lee and Isaiah Quinn were already present. Sierra sat beside me, and Xavier had also arrived, taking a seat behind me. At the start of the meeting, Casper walked in wearing the suit I'd bought for him. Seeing the scene unfolding before him, his expression instantly changed. Thanks for coming, everyone, he said, forcing himself to sound calm. My wife, Layla, is currently emotionally unstable, so I'll be taking over the company's management for now. Hold on a minute, Lena interrupted him flatly. We've already reviewed Thurmond's evidence. Everything you're saying is a lie. I opened the presentation, and the first slide was a screenshot of Casper's group chat. Keep gathering evidence, even if you have to fabricate it, to prove that she's unstable. Casper's face turned deathly pale. This is taken out of context. You know perfectly well whether it's been taken out of context or not. Xavier stood up. I watched with my own eyes as you forged evidence and plotted this whole thing. I switched to the financial slides. The blue bars represented the 17 major deals I'd brokered, while the white bars showed Casper's zero performance. For the past 2 years, the company's revenue has entirely depended on me. Casper hasn't signed a single contract, yet he's been raking in $1 million salary. Curtis spoke up too. Lockheed Martin only recognizes Thurmond's capabilities. None of our collaborations have anything to do with roads. Finally, I presented the documents from his shadow company, and the conference room erupted in uproar. Evan Norris, Casper's lawyer, leaned in close to whisper something in his ear, and Casper's shoulders instantly slumped. Lena stood up and said, "We'll formally confirm leadership tomorrow. Rhodes, I suggest you accept Sierra's acquisition offer. It's already the most generous outcome you could hope for." Several months later, the divorce proceedings were officially finalized. Casper wore a wrinkled shirt, had lost weight, and his hand, gripping the pen, trembled uncontrollably. Sierra pushed the settlement agreement toward him. Thurmond keeps the company, the real estate, and all investments. You're left with only your personal belongings and the cryptocurrency wallet from your failed startup. There'll be no alimony, and you're subject to a 5-year non-compete clause. Casper signed the document and said in a hoarse voice, "I know you don't believe me, but I'm really sorry." "I do not believe you," I said calmly. He didn't say another word and turned around to leave. Later, Tia Trent, a reporter from the Wall Street Journal, came to interview me. I told her, "The best revenge is to become even more successful yourself so that the person who betrayed you becomes utterly irrelevant." After her article was published, my inbox overflowed with messages from women who'd had similar experiences. A month after the divorce, I received a handwritten letter from Casper, postmarked from Omaha. It was 3 full pages long, filled entirely with his delusions, claiming that the company we built together, and saying he could come back to offer me advice. I filed the letter away in the case closed folder, reminding myself that some people will always remain trapped in their own fantasies. At the company's holiday party, Ezra raised his glass and proposed a toast to survival and to leaders who've earned everything through their own efforts. Lena also stood up, her voice trembling with emotion as she said, "My ex-husband once made me doubt myself." It was Thurmond who showed me that no one should ever allow themselves to be belittled by anyone. More and more colleagues began sharing their own stories, and we became each other's source of strength. A year later, I received an invitation to Xavier and Lena's wedding. At the reception, Xavier made a special mention of me. I once made an unforgivable mistake. It was Lila's forgiveness and Lena's unwavering persistence that helped me rediscover my conscience. I raised my glass and accepted his apology. Later, while shopping for olive oil at a grocery store near Pike Place Market, I ran into Casper, wearing an old shirt, comparing prices of ordinary pasta in front of the shelves. His pant legs were worn thin, and he'd lost his wedding ring. Our eyes met, and he wanted to come toward me, but the coldness in my eyes made him stop in his tracks. I turned around and continued shopping, preparing for the investor dinner for my second company, a company whose valuation has already surpassed $100 million. As for Casper, he can only see my name in business journals that he can't afford to buy. I know this is the best possible outcome.